All right, folks, welcome to the show. We're doing On the Road, Simple Living, Life Without a Paycheck. So, I am living right now out of my Honda Element, and I've been living a simple life for many long years. In my 20s, I was a Catholic monk for a number of years, and I learned a few things being a monk, and I'm going to try to share some of those things with you concisely and simply. But first, before we get started, a few ground rules on this channel here and what's going on. If you don't know me, I played in a band called Sideshow Tramps for many years, and I'm a musician, and it's a raucous, crazy band. And so if you're looking for a monastic wisdom that expresses itself sweetly and calmly and meekly, you need to go to another channel. That's not what's going to be happening here. I'm not that kind of guy. So I will be sharing with you, though, my wisdom I've learned from being a monk and ways that you can see your life in a way that will bring you greater happiness, I'm hoping. The other thing is, obviously, I was a monk, so I was Catholic. So there's going to be some Catholic talk. I'm not going to do what the atheists call Jesus smuggling. This isn't a channel on evangelization. This is a channel on simple living and monastic wisdom. But there's going to be Jesus talk. So if you can't handle that, go to another channel. And I think that's about it for the ground rules. I just had an awesome meal. My belly is full. Let me show you what I just made. I just made some bread, and I'm working on some new recipes, and I'm going to convey these things to you on another show. This first show is the big idea. It's giving you a general way of looking at life that will help you actually live these things that you see on so many YouTube channels and so many shows. They tell you how to cook. They tell you how to think. They tell you how to become happier. But the nuts and bolts of doing it is a little tricky. So that's what I'm going to try to get into here. But let me show you what I had for my meal. Now that is an amazing piece of bread there, folks. This isn't out of a magazine. This is out of the kitchen I am staying in right now. Being out of my Honda Element, but I'm staying in a little cottage. And I just made this bread, and it just came out of the oven, and it was amazing. I'm using some sharbati bread from the middle of India. I mean flour. I'm using some all-purpose flour. I'm using salt and yeast and the regular deal. We'll get into that more at some other point. But awesome bread, and I made some hummus from scratch, and I think the whole thing probably cost 10 cents. 50 cents at the most if I put a bunch of oil on it. So I'm going to show you recipes and things of how to really cut down your spending. But first, let's get into the big idea. Realize this: what you want is not to learn how to cook more cheaply. What you want is not to learn how to lose weight. What you want is not to learn how to pick up women or men and all these things that you seek. What you want is clearly to be happy and peaceful. And there's a million books in a million libraries all over the world about that exact same thing. So that's something I hope to talk about here on the channel. But the main thing I'm trying to get through to you now is keep in mind your focus. When you're looking at how to cook better and how to live more cheaply, keep in mind what your telos is, as they would say in Greek philosophy, what your goal is. Your goal is happiness and peace. Some of the things that you learn will help you at some points. Some points they won't. We'll get into that later. All right. Now, think about this. Let's start to change our mind about food and about money. You want to think about, how do the poor eat? This is something I ask myself all the time. And I have friends who go to India and go to Ghana. And one friend of mine actually works with the food system and people working with the food system in Ghana. I always ask them, how do the people eat? How do the poor eat? Since I was 19 years old, before I even went into the monastery, I was trying to figure out, how do poor people eat? What does it mean to be poor? Jesus was poor. What would they eat? What is the daily bread? And I want to show you a prop here. Every Lent, and it happens to be Lent right now during the middle of this COVID virus thing, every Lent, the CDC, the Catholic CBS, Catholic Bishop Society of America, whatever it's called. They put out a little thing about how to make some recipes during Lent. I just want to show you some of these recipes from around the world and give you a picture of how people are eating who can't just go to fast food restaurants all the time like we can, and can't just go get frozen meals like we can. This is how your ancestors ate before America became America. So we have here arroz rojo, red rice, okay? And little Maria just smiling so sweet. We have energia, cabbage with crepes. We have, and I'm going to show you the point of this in a second. I just want to give you a few pictures of meals from around the world. Here we have dolma with spinach, vegetable stew from India. And then we have a little bit of ifashi peanut stew with polenta. Polenta can be substituted for rice. But the point of this is, look at all these recipes. They're all rice and vegetables. Rice and vegetables. That's what everyone's eating who doesn't get to be in America and just go through a drive-through and get a big fat cow. And most people in the world are eating rice, vegetables, rice, and beans. And there's a million ways to prepare that. You go to a Tex-Mex restaurant here in Texas, and it's amazing. And you don't think about the fact that you're eating usually very poor food. If you watch Anthony Bourdain, God rest his soul, I love Anthony Bourdain, you'll see that he always wanted to go not to the big fancy restaurant. He wanted to go to the shop on the street. So I'm just wanting to get to your mind that you need to change your mind about food. You need to change your mind about what a good meal is. And I'm going to give you some ways to do that in the future. Think about, when I was in the monastery, there was a brother named Brother Paul Francis. And one day in the garden, we're working, and Brother Paul Francis, sleek man and good-looking fella. And he said that when he first got to the monastery, he was over 300 pounds. And I could not believe that. And he said, yeah, when he first got to the monastery, they had to make a special habit for him. He couldn't fit into any of the habits that they had in stock. So they had to make a special habit for his over 300-pound body. And I asked him, well, how did you lose the weight? And he laughed. He goes, we were out in the garden working. And his point was the monastic life is how he lost weight. He wasn't trying to lose weight, his character traits. That's what he was seeking. The weight came off later. The peace, the happiness comes later. Just like in a garden, you till the soil, you plant, you wait, the biting into the sweet fruit and the meal on your table comes later. So the sweet fruit here in this example is your life being full of happiness and peace, or more happiness and peace. Excuse me. That's what you're seeking. I'm going to drink a tea here real quick. By the way, another ground rule for this channel. As you may notice, this is live, and I'm not going to be editing. I think I'm tired of seeing jump cuts all the time. And if you need fast stimulus, again, go to another channel. All right, so I want you to think about when Jesus talked about the rich man and Lazarus. If you don't know this story, I'll tell it to you super brief. There was a rich man outside of his house. Someone begged every day. His name was Lazarus. They both died. They go to Abraham's bosom. The rich man is over in torment. There's a great chasm between them. The poor man, Lazarus, is in Abraham's bosom, enjoying the peace of his life with his fathers. The rich man is in torment, begs for Lazarus to come over and just put a drop of water on his tongue. Abraham says, can't do that. I'm giving you the short version. Then he says, please go tell my brothers about this place of torment. Abraham says they have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. The man says, no, if someone was raised from the dead, my brothers will believe. Please let Lazarus go back and tell them. And Abraham says, no, they will not believe even if someone is raised from the dead. And that's a very important psychological understanding as you change your mind about food and about your life and living more simply. What will make the difference is not a changed schedule, a changed plan, a changed diet, a changed anything. The only thing that'll work is your changed mind and heart. There's got to be a little switcheroo up here. And that's what I'm wanting to kind of help gradually as I do these things to maybe experience, as I've experienced a change that has brought greater and greater straightness and less wobbliness. But the rich man and Lazarus thing, let's go back to that for a second. An important point that I want to get to is Jesus started the parable by saying the rich man dined sumptuously every day. All right, now what does that mean? That's what I'm going to get to. What does it mean to dine sumptuously every day? If you look through scripture, the implications are not just against riches bluntly. Every time, as far as I can recall, every time there's something hooked onto that. It's what the person did with their rich. Every word out of that man's mouth was important and chosen specifically to convey a point. And the point was this man dined sumptuously every day. That's what you want to kind of get to the bottom of. Am I dining sumptuously every day? As an American, let's say you're poor, like I've been my entire life. I would eat out a lot, and you know, you think that you're poor because you're eating a dollar menu or something. That's not poor. You're eating a big fat cow, and which I do all the time. I love meat. This isn't the thing about meat, but I'm just saying you're eating a very sumptuous meal. It's just presented to you very inexpensively because people have to suffer to make that happen in other parts of the world. But the point is, you are dining sumptuously, probably, and maybe every day. And we want to cut back on that a little bit. You'll see benefits of it in your smile, in your skin, in your weight, in everything you do, especially when you get to the bottom of this little list here that I want to talk to you about, and you start having outflow. You start moving things out to other people, then you'll have joy well spring up within you. But I want you to think about, are you dining sumptuously? Check out Rob Greenfield's YouTube page. I'll put a link down below. Rob Greenfield. He lived for 1 year without any money and only with what he grew in his own, with his own hands in his garden. He started with zero garden, and that was his thing that he set up for himself to try to do, to see if he could do. He lived in someone's backyard in a tiny house. He got some of the neighbors to agree to let him grow plants in their yard, and he started from scratch, grew plants with where there was dead ground in front of somebody's house, and then a year later, gardens all over the neighborhood that he had done himself, and all of the food he ate was from those gardens. Never bought it, never bought salt. He would go out into the ocean, get the water, let it dry, and then scrape the salt out. He bought nothing. Everything he did was from his own hands. Now, he doesn't live like that all the time, but he did it for a year to show you and me what can be done and how we can all live simply and not have to worry about losing your job, really, if you know how to make your life what your ancestors knew. But so think about this. Am I dining sumptuously every day? And is that making me happier? And how can I maybe change my view of food and change my view of life? All right, let's go on to the next thing. Change your inspirations. I'm going to talk about time and meditation. And I'm not going to talk about meditation. I'm going to talk about what meditation actually is. There's a lot of videos on meditation, and they're great. And sure, do your meditation, do the meditation app. I do it every day. But the point is, understand that everybody meditates. The atheist meditates. The dude bra who hates meditation and goofy hippie people who do that, he meditates every day. Your mind is made to meditate, and you do it every day. It's just, what are you meditating on? And who are your inspirations? Think about this. In Torah, in the scripture, there are certain animals that are unclean. The ones that are clean are the ones that chew their cud. Now, what does that mean? What's the spiritual lesson in that? I mean, why not eat an animal that doesn't chew its cud? What's the point? Who cares if it chews its cud? The point scripture is trying to get across to you, which Origen, the early church father, said, and also all the rabbis said it for centuries. All the rabbis already always all known this, that the animal eats something and then it brings it back up and it chews on it. Now, what could that be a metaphor for? Let's think about that. What God is trying to get through to his people, whoever will listen, is that you want to consume those kind of animals, or you want to become, you are what you eat, right? That's the imagery that's being conveyed. You want to become the kind of being that hears something, sees something, and then brings it up later and chews on it, thinks about it. We even use that kind of language when we talk about thinking something over. We're chewing on something. That's why we use that language, because we're created to be that way. And the animal is an image of how you're supposed to be. Everybody meditates. Everybody watches shows. Everybody reads books and magazines. And then they sit and they think about it later. The question is, what are you meditating on? Now, as a small, short caveat, nowadays we have the internet, and we can go from one thing to another, and we never stop and chew on something. Think about what that would do to your body if you never digested, if you just kept eating and eating and eating and eating, and you never stopped. We had a cow who did that in the monastery, actually, and we had to have the vet come in and stick his hand up her rear end and pull stuff out and give her all kinds of extreme treatments because the cow kept eating and eating and didn't pause to digest. If you're wondering why you have anxiety, if you're wondering why you maybe have some depression problems, ask yourself, am I taking things in and then pausing and having times of silence, an hour, 2 hours, where there's no television, there's no internet, I'm just on the front porch watching the world go by and thinking about things, giving things a good think through, just chewing on it, Let your meditations digest. And then what are you eating? What are you thinking? What are you meditating on? Is it all news, terror, horror, fear? What do you think that's going to bring back up for you when your soul is digesting that? What kind of health is that going to bring to you? So think about what you're thinking about. Think about what you're thinking about. It's super important. You cannot lose weight. You cannot become healthy. You cannot become happy unless you change your perspective on how you're spending your money. And it's most of people's money goes on food. Okay, rent, sure, but food is where most money goes. All right, so check out that Rob Greenfield thing, Simple Living, and also spend more time watching things like Rob Greenfield. Spend more time watching people who are living a simple life. Meditate on those things. Think on those things, and it will change how you act. You can't just buckle down and try to do a diet while your brain is watching what Daddy Corporation is giving you every day. Daddy Corporation's telling you to be happy, you got to have this car, you've got to have that clothes, you've got to have this face commercials, because you know that's not wrong or that not right. But what I would hope to get through to you is, no, you can't. Whatever you're chewing on, whatever you're eating, will come out in your fat, in your skin, and then in your soul. Whatever you're thinking about will come out, no matter if you know it's not right or not. So watch what you're thinking. Change your inspirations. All right, let's go to the final thing. Seeking joy and peace is not any particular thing that you acquire, especially money. Now, when you point to the moon to a dog, the moon looks at you, the dog looks at your finger. We all know that. You can point to the moon, you can point to the stars, and the dog will look at your finger. Now, the things that bring you peace and joy, little pockets of happiness, they come through certain things. That happiness is handed off to you through the mediator of some kind of material thing. That's the way we're created. So you get money, you feel happy. You use that money and it buys you something, and that's good. Everything's supposed to work that way. When you eat your food, or you're having your marital relations, or you're watching a movie, or you're seeing art, or you're reading a book, all these things are created to bring you the joy. They're pointing you to the moon. They're pointing you to what is that feeling within me. And the idea is that you see them and you feel them, and then you go into a state of gratitude and you thank the I don't know what, which is so gladly found, which is what St. John of the Cross, another monk, St. John of the Cross called God. St. Thomas Aquinas called God that which is commonly referred to as God. And as I said, St. John of the Cross calls him that I don't know what, which is so gladly found. Do you not know who God is or what God is? Join the club. Nobody does. That is the way it is on this earth. But you can move your mind out. And I have a lot of sympathy for atheists. I'm an atheist sympathizer. So let me just briefly say something to most of my friends are atheists. Let me just say something to the atheists so that they can join the party too. You can think, I had an atheist friend of mine, girlfriend actually, and she told me she was in, well, I'm not going to say what country she was in, but she was floating out in the ocean, looking at the moon, and she just was overcome with joy at that situation. And she just had a welling up feeling of gratitude. And she didn't have anyone to thank, but she still had this feeling of gratitude. Now, to me, in my theist mind, this is someone having an experience with that which is commonly referred to as God, but not knowing exactly what they're having an experience with, which is pretty much how most all of us are anyway. If you look at the distance between a super holy person and an atheist and God, it's still such a huge difference that when you get further and further back, it looks like the atheist and the theist look like one point on the map. So I think we're all kind of in the same boat here when it comes to God. So I want you to think about not staring at the finger, not the finger. Beavis and Butthead moment. I want you to think about staring at the effects of the things that come to you, and then being grateful and putting your mind up to questioning. Even if you're an atheist, you can go, where does this come from? That's what all scientists are trying to find. Well, not all of them, but a great deal of scientists are trying to find a unified field theory, but then also, where does consciousness come from? That's a big puzzle. Join the club, atheists. You're in the same boat. You can say, where does this come from? But the important thing is, don't lower your eyes to the thing that it came through, or you'll get attached. And then you'll be in muck and flypaper. You'll get attached to the woman. You'll get attached to the man. You'll get attached to the relationship. You'll get attached to the money in the paycheck. You'll get attached to the food. Whatever the thing is, you got to fight against that. That's what we're here for. We're here to tikkun hamidot, as they say in Hebrew, to rectify your character traits. And there's reasons for all that. Too much to get into. We'll talk about it later. All right, guys, I think we're coming to pretty much the end, except for the final thing that's going to give you real joy in all this. You're going to become Robin Hood. You're going to become Robin Hood. So you're bringing things in, You're having money come in, you're having a paycheck. Maybe right now you don't as much, but, and we're going to talk about that later on in a further episode of how to actually do your diet and how to actually lower your bill. Right now I'm just trying to get minds more focused and right. Robinhood. Whatever you bring in, when you start simplifying your diet, simplifying your life, you're going to have excess. And with that excess, you're going to do what many immigrants do. But I was sitting at the Hobbit Hole Cafe. It's a restaurant in Houston, Texas. I was sitting at time for my 3 o'clock prayer time. I was sitting at a restaurant called the Hobbit Hole Cafe. It's based off of Tolkien's Hobbit book. And I'm sitting next to this guy who was an immigrant, and I start talking to him about, do you ever feel bad that you're like here at the Hobbit Hole Cafe and we're having mead and we're having these awesome meals and it's amazing, and the people who you left can't? And he said, well, no, because I see myself as being here to help them. He said, I make money and then I send it back to them. I make money and I send it to them. I've had a lot of people talk to me on back porches late at night and in bars about how they feel bad about the homeless situation. They feel bad about all the pictures of the poor people around the world. And they just want to know what they can do about it. But it seems so difficult to do anything about it. Good news, folks. You can become like that immigrant guy. In fact, you are that guy. Just become Robin Hood. All the money that you save, and as you simplify your life, take some of it. If you can. Back when I was living on $80 a month, I had zero to give, even though I still think I gave $1 or $2 just to have that giving muscle worked. You got to work that muscle of giving. But you can become that guy, and you can start helping people all around the world, even if it's $5, even if it's $10 a month, doesn't matter. Something has to go out. Just like when you eat, something has to go out. As Jesus said, those who eat, it goes into their mouth and it comes out in the latrine. Yes, that's something Jesus said. He was talking about clean and unclean food and what constitutes clean and unclean. But if you don't have something going out, you're going to start feeling more and more horrible. I'm talking about your soul now, your body also, because they're a composite unity. So you need stuff to go out. So start being Robin Hood. Start taking a little bit of that money, and especially if you save money from the simplifying that I'm going to talk about later, and start giving it out. Now, how to do that? Dude, there's so many ways, but listen what I just recently found out. PayPal lets you roll down a little bit on the PayPal screen, and there's a little window that you can put your favorite charity in, and it pops up, and you click one button, maybe two, and the money's gone. And they don't take money out of that. They don't take money out of that. All your money goes to the charity. So look up a charity. Be it the, what is this one? What the hell is it called again? CRS, Catholic Relief Services, the Bishops of America's charity. Mary's Meals. They take food and they give it to kids at schools so that they can eat at schools. There's a lot of homeless charities. Just find one. It's fun. Pick it. Then go to your PayPal or set up PayPal. Find some way. And every month, just boom, boom, do a little Robin Hood. Give a little money out, and that'll help a lot. All right, final thing is talking about one of my upcoming shows. Every week in the monastic schedule, there's a Sabbath, just like there is in Torah, because everything comes from Judaism. In the monastery, every week there's a Sabbath, and on the Sabbath, you eat whatever you want. On the Sabbath, you enjoy the good things. In Hebrew, it's called an oneg. An oneg, it's a delight. Your Sabbath, your one day a week, should be filled with some kind of delight. It's what a friend of mine called a cheat day. God has worked a cheat day into the week every week. So and that's just a foreshadowing of the next few lessons. You're going to be eating not poor and simple all the time. There's going to be a lot of feasting. The monastic calendar is full of feasting and rejoicing. So that's enough for today, I think. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me. This has been Monastic Wisdom coming out of my element. I'm here in my Honda Element, and we'll come to you next time. Thanks, guys. Peace.